Hey, check on a car sitting on the wrong side of the street. It's dark. Got one of the doors open. The vehicle has no plates. Looks like a beater, four-door green LTD. I don't see anybody in, but it's got those darkened windows.
And I just came upon a car that was illegally parked. It was
Northgate,
parked left wheel to curb. No license plates. So I got out of the car to go get the VIN number off the front of the car and see if I could find out who the car was registered to. And as soon as I stepped out of my vehicle...
North Riverside, you have a unit. I have a unit over there, Northgate Court in Northgate.
And started to walk towards the other vehicle. The back door of that car opened up on the driver's side, which was towards the curb, and somebody literally rolled out of it, almost like a military roll, and I immediately heard the slide of the shotgun, and I was shot, immediately shot, and it lifted me off the ground. So I tried to call for help, but my radio had been cut in half by the shotgun blast.
Where's it? Off the Selborne.
So I had to crawl back to my squad car, use the in-car radio to call for help.
10-4, North Riverside, there are armed. He's been shot at 613th and Road from 26th to 1st.
And I truly believe that day that they thought they killed me.
10-4, North Riverside unit, 10-4. 13 10-4. 17 615.
Riverside, give me an ambulance here right away.
Riverside, you want mine?
Wagons, proceed with yours.
Get quick, Riverside. They're closer.
Floor 10-4.
What's the vehicle description?
The beater green 40 LTD 4 doors. It's got the darkened windows, no plates. There's at least 3 middle lights.
Tom, like so many of the heroes that we have on this podcast, we welcome you. And it's always a story that the hero didn't expect. You know, it's not guns a-blazing and it's not sirens and chases and all that sometimes define the heroes that appear on Heroes Behind the Badge. It's not a dramatic incident. It's something that showed up without warning, kind of as part of a normal day. Every hero has that moment. You had that moment that showed up without warning. That moment that reshapes your career, reshapes your life. And from that story, from that moment, everything else flows. And yours is that great hero story that one day in August of 1987 in Riverside, Illinois, on a quiet summer night, things changed. And from that, your life changed and a lot of interesting things have happened. Our audience loves to hear stories like this. So we'd love you, Tom Weitzel, to step forward. Law enforcement veteran, Riverside, Illinois Police Department, 13 years as the chief of said department, and a life of service. I'll let you tell. I don't want to take your story because it's a great story and I want you to tell it. So welcome to Heroes Behind the Badge.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. And, you know, I never considered myself a hero. And what you were alluding to was I was shot in the line of duty in 1987 in August. And Riverside is a small community of 9,000 west of the city, Chicago. And not that we didn't see crime, but we didn't have really street crime, so to speak of. And my incident took place at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was on patrol. We always had one-man patrol cars. There was no such things in the suburbs as two-man. And I just came upon a car that was illegally parked. It was parked left wheel to curb, no license plates. So I got out of the car to go get the VIN number off the front of the car and see if I could find out who the car was registered to. And as soon as I stepped out of my vehicle and started to walk towards the other vehicle, the back door of that car opened up on the driver's side, which was towards the curb. And somebody literally rolled out of it, almost like a military roll. and I immediately heard the slide of the shotgun. So it was a pump shotgun. And if you've heard that rack, you know what it is. And I was shot, immediately shot, and it lifted me off the ground and it forced me back, and I hit my head off the bumper of the squad car, knocked me out probably for a minute, minute and a half. When I regained consciousness, the doors were all open. The offenders were coming from the yard, jumping into the car and fleeing. I looked down to see if I should return fire, and the car was going. So if I was to return fire, I probably would have just been shooting it randomly in the middle of the night and probably would have hit homes instead of anybody. So I tried to call for help, but my radio had been cut in half by the shotgun blast. So my portable radio, I went over to look at it, and the antenna was completely shattered and the microphone was completely shattered. So I had to crawl back to my squad car, use the in-car radio to call for help. And I truly believed that day that they thought they killed me or I was going to die, because they could have easily come back after I was knocked out and just pumped another round into me, and I for sure would have been dead. I think one of the things that really helped me in that situation medically was it was birdshot. So what happened is most of my bulletproof vest took it, but I had some eye injuries from the pellets. I had broken ribs, I had broken blood vessels, and I had some stomach issues that were result of the trauma. So I actually was in the hospital for 3 days afterwards before being released. And it was quite an ordeal. You have to take into consideration, Riverside had never had a police officer involved shooting or a police officer shot ever in the history of the village. So it was quite a traumatic event. And back in the mid 80s, departments didn't know how to handle those shootings.
Yeah.
What time of day
Tom,
was that, Tom?
Yeah.
Tom, what time of day was that?
3 a.m. in the morning.
So obviously 3 a.m. in the morning, it sounds to me like you were describing they were breaking into a home or a home invasion there. Did any of the neighbors call 911 after hearing the gunfire?
A single call. And you know what they were doing? The person that lived in that house, this was found out through investigation, worked for the sheriff's office in Cook County, and his job was to review people that would be up for early release or parole. And he had denied the early release to a Chicago gang member. He then sent other gang members to go to that house to assassinate him. So the intent was to do a home invasion, kill this officer that worked for the sheriff's police, but he worked for the jail side of it to release prisoners, and as a retaliation for not letting one of their gang members out on early release. And then I interrupted it, and they shot me instead of the homeowner.
Wow.
So Tom, really, you saved this guy's life. I mean, it's obvious that if you hadn't have stumbled upon that vehicle parked in a place it shouldn't have been that night, that correctional professional would have been killed, and maybe his whole family. And so kudos to you. Obviously, you suffered, but you saved a life. One of the things I've long been an advocate of, and it really upsets me when I see police officers not wearing their bullet-resistant vests. It doesn't happen as often now as it used to, but you're talking 1987. All right, bullet-resistant vests were not really worn regularly, and it was not mandatory back in those days. But for some reason, maybe it was your wife. I'm sure my wife would have had me wearing a vest, but you purchased your own vest, and it saved your life. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so they didn't purchase vests for us when I started. You had to do it on your own. And actually, my wife purchased it as a gift. And she had purchased back then, the brand she purchased was Point Blank. I don't know if you recall those. And we had to wear those under our uniforms. The department policy was, today you see a lot of the vests outside, right? You had to wear it under your shirt and under your uniform, and it wasn't mandatory. So there was not a policy that said the officers must wear it back then. So it's kind of a strange story. So when after I was shot, Point Blank reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to feature you in a news ad in these police chiefs magazines and police magazines about being saved by our vest. And in return, we'll supply the whole department with free vests. And they reached out to me about 2 months after the shooting, and I did not want to do it. So I told the guy from Point Blank, like, I don't want notoriety. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't mentally there. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do any ad campaign heroizing that, that I got shot. I don't want that. Well, when my chief found that out, he came over to my house and said, Tom, they're offering to purchase bulletproof vests for free for every officer if you agree to this media campaign. I'd really like you to do it. And I said no. And I think the chief was really upset at me for the rest of my career until he retired. I don't think he ever forgave me. And it was just that I wasn't in a place to do this media blitz 2 months after I was shot, when my wife didn't even want me to go back to work. And, but my chief at the time, all he saw was, hey, they're going to give us free vests for every officer. So I'd really like you to do this for the department. And, I didn't. So it caused a big problem then between the administration and me during that period of time.
So Tom, I want to expound on that a little bit, but then I want to get back to your story. But Point Blank, everybody down here wore Point Blank. I wore a Point Blank vest under my shirt. And then later in my career, I wore a 30-pound tactical vest from Point Blank. And I had been to their facility a number of times because they're located just outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida down here. And I remember that program. And they used to do that with everybody, where it was the Point Blank Saves program. And they interviewed all these cops that got saved by the vest. And it was quite a good thing. But let's go back to what you were saying about when you did get shot and this gangbanger rolls out of his car out of the back, shoots you with this shotgun. The rest of the scumbags come running out of the house that are trying to assassinate the homeowner. And who are these guys? What are their backgrounds? Why was this happening? There's one, I guess one of them or all of them were gangbangers.
Yeah, the story behind that was years later, ATF made a gun running arrest, and one of the individuals they arrested wanted to give information on a police involved. He thought it was a murder. That's what he told the ATF agent, for lessening the charges that he was going to be going away for on gun running. And he's like, you shot him? And they said, no, I was with the person that shot him, and I will exchange that information if you give me consideration. So ATF said, sure. ATF reached out to Chicago. They said, hey, you have any unsolved shootings involving your police officers where they were shot? They're like, nope, we do not. So ATF thought he was lying, and the guy didn't even know that he had shot in suburban Riverside. He thought it was a Chicago officer. And ATF finally put it together. They called one day, talked to our chief and said, hey, we have really good lead on the guy that shot your officer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do anything with it. And the reason was because in Illinois in that time, the statute of limitations for attempted murder of a police officer was 3 years, if you can believe that.
Yes,
Yes.
unbelievable.
It was 3 years. And think about this. In that same time period, the charge of forgery was forever. So you could write a bad check in Illinois and have the bad check bounce, and the police could chase you down for 30 years. You could attempt to kill a police officer, and there was a 3-year statute of limitations. And it's since changed. I worked with the state legislature when that happened. I was so angry. We had a state legislator that lived in Riverside, and I worked with her to get the law changed. But they could do nothing for my case.
So that to me, that's almost nuts. But
It's Illinois, Bill. Come on.
well, it is Illinois, Well, what can you say? But hey, so 3 years attempted murder on a police officer. So if it was attempted murder on a police officer, I guess the statute of limitations was the same for attempted murder on anyone, correct?
Yeah, they didn't have back then, they didn't even have a designation. So it was just attempted murder was a 3-year statute of limitations. They didn't even have a subcategory for police.
Wow. Okay, so and you were just about to tell us you jumped on this bandwagon and ran with it, I guess.
Yeah, I had a state legislator that lived in town. Her name was Judy Bar Topinka, and I went to her and told her, and it had gotten some local news media coverage, and she had heard about it. She said, "Yeah, we'll go with you to Springfield, Illinois, the capital, and we'll try to get this law changed along with another law." So she came up with the idea, like, let's regulate these dark windows. Well, let's get some regulations in Illinois on how dark your windows can be tinted. So after several months, she proposed legislation, and it passed overwhelmingly to eliminate the statute of limitations and put the percentage of how dark your windows could be in Illinois for that tinting.
Mm, gotcha. But
Tom, I
that
want to go
never
back.
helped your situation, though.
Yeah.
No, but it was able to help others. But no, it did not. It was not able to help my situation.
So the guy that shoots you, Tom, gets off scot-free. There was never any justice in your case, although there was some good legislation, another law that went into place, thankfully, as a result of your sacrifice. I want to go back to the shooting, though. Um, Thankfully, most of us have never been shot. Okay. I just want you to try to recollect what went on in your body and your mind. I mean, you're almost killed. You were lifted off your feet, you said, by the shotgun blast, and obviously did a lot of damage, even though the vest saved your life. What goes through your head? I mean, you were able to call dispatch, I guess, and call in the shooting. I mean, tell me what's going on at that point in your life and the trauma that you suffered as a result.
For me, and I think for most people that if you ever talk to somebody who was stabbed or shot, I my training kicked in it, and it took like 1 second. Like, so I'm a big advocate for that repetitive training. When I got shot, when I woke up from my head bouncing off the end of the squad car at the bumper, I just immediately went for my handgun. Immediately. They didn't take it. I still had it. And back then it was a revolver. I had a Smith and Wesson revolver, and they were already fleeing. And I literally would have randomly been shooting down the block in a suburban community. So I wasn't going to do that. And then I went for my radio, right? And it wasn't working. And I immediately crawled like the army crawl back to my squad cars. My door was still open on the squad because I got out to check that VIN number, crawled in and called in help on the police radio. And it just was, you go back to your survival training and the training you're taught, even in the police academy. And people have asked me before, "Well, how did you revert back there?" I didn't have to revert back there. I just defaulted to my training immediately. I can't describe it any other way except for it just clicked. You just went back to your training.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I don't know, we should compare notes here. Now that you've been retired for a while, I'm retired for a while. I find myself now out and about, and I see something that happens, or I'm always carrying a gun, and I just feel like I'm kind of soft now. I feel like you're not psychologically in that mindset and in that game, and you kind of lose it. So there's a lot to be said about that repetitive behavior of muscle memory from training, and I feel like now I'm not even near what I should be, or how I was, I guess is better to say.
Yeah, I would agree. You lose if you're not like I used to. Our qualification in the department was every month, right? You get really good. Even the officers who aren't really proficient, the more you do it, the better you get, without a doubt. And the physical fitness, and any ground fighting training we would have, and even in retire, I have a few things I do. My wife still drives me crazy. She drives me crazy by saying, when I go to restaurants and stuff, I always pick a table where I can see the door and don't have my back to it. And it drives my wife crazy. But she goes, "You've been retired now. You're still doing that." I'm like, "Yeah, I do. That's just what I've done my whole life."
Well, and it could happen anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter whether you're retired or not. I mean, we told a story about this guy. He was a police chief in Kentucky. He was 80 years old, and he walked down the driveway to his mailbox to get the mail one day. And, your situation was with a shotgun. So some scumbag jumped out of a car with a shotgun and blew his head off. He was 80 years old. He'd been retired for years. This guy had been just recently released from prison. And this guy, this 80-year-old man, police chief, had put him in prison 30 years ago, something like that. And boom, all of a sudden. So, you never know. And it's always better to be safe than sorry. But I want to ask you about this piece of shit that shot you. Who is this guy? I guess you know his name. Do you know anything about him? Did he go to prison? Is he hopefully dead? What's his deal?
He's dead now. He
Good.
did not go to prison he was a Latin King gang member in Chicago. And he was a high-ranking Latin King gang member. And yes, he died in a street battle years later. He did have some prison stints between my shooting and when the individual wanted to give him up to ATF. He had some minor arrests that he had done like 6 months or a year in. And he never did an extended period of time in state prison, ever. And then he was killed himself in a shootout.
So the Latin Kings was at the time, and I don't know about now. It was a pretty vicious street gang.
Very violent street gang. And at one time, they controlled Chicago. They still are a violent street gang in Chicago. There just are many other street gangs in Chicago with that same status. But in the early and mid 80s, the Latin Kings ruled the city of Chicago. Yeah, Chicago put him on their radar for sure. He had already been on their radar, but after this had taken place, because we had received a phone call from the Chicago police and their tactical commander, which is the officers they send out in plain clothes. They knew the individual well, and they were going to make sure that they kept a close watch. We even received phone calls from the FBI and the United States Secret Service at that time, offering any help that they could to maybe make a case against this individual for other crimes. That like maybe putting them up on wires and stuff. You couldn't get them for my crime. That was off the books. It was never going to happen. But they, the feds did call and say, hey, we're maybe we'll get this guy on our radar too. We'll just keep him on the radar so that we're following their activity. I did not see the federal government make an arrest. Chicago had many contacts with him after this took place. And then some people will say, unfortunately, he was killed in Chicago. I wouldn't be one of those people to say that. But and that wasn't a gang. There were no innocent people in that. Those were gangbangers shooting each other.
Yeah, a little street justice there, hopefully.
Yeah. Here's my favorite part of the story, though. So you're shot in August of 1987, nearly killed, spend 3 days in the hospital recovering, then you go home. And as most wives would do, it's my understanding that your wife discouraged you from going back on the job. You've been on the job, I believe, 3 years at the time of the shooting. And yet you decided to go back and become a police officer once again, even though the profession nearly killed you. And I have to ask you, because most normal people, I don't think, would have done that. But you went on not only to go back on the job for a few more years, you served 37 years in law enforcement, and 13 of them as chief of police in that same department that you were serving back in 1987. I'm just trying to understand, number one, how did your wife continue living with you after you decided to go back against her wishes? And why did you do it, my friend? 37 years in a profession that nearly cost you your life. And now you have 3 sons that are serving in that same profession. Now, most people wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say I've always thought law enforcement and policing is the most honorable profession ever. I've always thought that. I wanted to be a policeman my whole life. I was the type of kid that I went to a Catholic grade school. When I hear a siren, I'd run to the window and the nuns would have to pull me back to my seat. So I always wanted to be in law enforcement. And then when this incident happened, the shooting afterwards, when I came home, what I found out had happened to my wife was terrible. And she was really turned off by the way she was notified and what had happened. So originally when the department found out, the rest of the officers found out I was shot, they called the chief. The chief said, okay, I'm going to go over to Tom's house, pick up his wife. He calls my wife. He's in the park. We live in an apartment at that time. He says, I'm down in the parking lot. This is how my wife gets notified I've been shot. He says, your husband has been shot. I don't know if he's alive. come down to the parking lot. I'm going to drive you to the hospital.
Wow.
She throws on some clothes, comes down in his chief's car. He drive to Loyola University Medical Center in Maywood, Illinois, where I was taken. And he drops my wife off at the drive-through. He doesn't go in. Now imagine this. My wife goes into the ER on her own. The media is already there. So my wife goes into the emergency room and she's surrounded by media with no other police officers. There are none media. Our chief left because he said he was going back to the scene, he told her, instead of stay with her. And, when I got home after the shooting, my wife said, look, I can't take this. I need you to find something else to do. And over these 6 weeks that I was recuperating, I'm like, what else do I know? This is what I've trained my whole life for. It's what I wanted to do my whole life. I don't really have skills right now at 22, 23, however old I was. Like, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not an electrician. I don't have those skills. The skills I have are in law enforcement. And I'd have this talk with my wife. I said, I really have to go back. She goes, you have to go back or want to go back. And it started out as have to go back. By the end of the 6 weeks, I wanted to go back. And I said, you have to be on board, and she wasn't at first. She was like, I can't, this is terrible. I don't like the way the department treated you. I'm scared to death. I didn't know if you were alive or dead. And this is a small suburban police department. She's like, oh my God, if it happens in Riverside, I mean, what's next? So we had a lot of conversations, and I got to a place where I wanted to go back and be in the profession that I loved and still love and serve honorably. And, on a side note, when I went back, I had to go through all the usual, see a shrink and all this stuff to get legal, to get back on the road. And the chief said to me, yeah, I don't think you might not rise too high in the department. Like, I think this is going to hold you back. Being shot. I'm like, oh.
What an asshole. So,
You don't have to name names, but yeah, asshole. That's a good one.
Honestly, because I'm as you're telling this story, and I'm thinking, every experience that I had with someone that was shot, they were forever anointed and taken care of on the police department.
Heroes.
When they came back to work, they got a sweet assignment. They got what they wanted. They were looked out for. They often got promoted. This is contrary to everything that you're saying.
You know what they did with me when I returned? They sent me, I had to go to the shrink, and then they sent me to somebody to put hypnosis. So maybe I could give a better description. And back in the 80s, they didn't know what it didn't work. It was a joke. But they wouldn't allow me I had to ride a two-man police car for the first month because they were afraid I would overreact. And then they took me off midnights, and they wouldn't allow me to work midnights for over 6 months. So I worked just days and 4 to 12 when I always worked midnights because I was so young, right? It was all by seniority. So that was their answer to putting me back on the street, keeping me off the midnight shift and having me double up with an officer until that officer said, yeah, I don't think Tom will overreact, because the chief told me, he's like, yeah, after being shot, I think you might overreact on a situation. I'm like, where did you come up with that? Like, what kind of training do you have? So because the chiefs back then, they didn't have a lot of training in this area, especially if you were in suburban department where they never experienced an officer shooting ever. They didn't know what to do.
So you feel like you got maybe a little bit of retribution after you told that story about the point blank situation, I suppose.
Yeah, and I took some credit. And my thing was, I didn't want to bring notoriety to myself on that. I was only on the job 3 years. I'm a lonely patrolman. I have no authority. I have no rank. I have nothing. And I didn't want this to define my career. And you're right. People looked at you differently when you come back. But if you're being held in a thing where they're giving you special assignments and maybe looking at you as, hey, you've been through the battle, that didn't happen with me. I was given no special assignments. I wasn't treated any differently. The officers were great. The administration was not.
Yeah, I'm sure. And
Point,
it always seems to be that way.
Bill, you may know this too. I know Tom does, but we at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund had worked very closely as partners with DuPont DuPont makes the Kevlar fiber that gives the bullet-resistant vests their resistance power, and it's been extremely valuable. Those vests have saved thousands and thousands of police lives since they started being used back in the mid 1970s. And they do have a IACP DuPont Kevlar Survivors Club. People like Tom become members of that club when they are saved by a bullet resistant vest, and they are usually publicized. Tom, I can understand the traumatic event you were going through, and just months after the shooting, you were asked to kind of be out there and tell your story. I can understand why you would be hesitant to do that. But I will say that the Survivors Club, I think just the mere fact that they're telling stories about officers who've been saved by their vests have encouraged thousands of officers to wear their vests. Because I think most officers, sometimes it's hot, sometimes these vests can be uncomfortable, especially in the summer months. But the bottom line is you never know when that life-threatening moment may come. But you do know that it could come on the very next call, and that vest may very well save your life. So that's kind of a public service announcement I'll make for all those law enforcement professionals and their family members that are listening, because as in your case, Tom, I know of a lot of wives and children of officers who have purchased bullet-resistant vests to make sure their loved one gets home safely. So I hope that continues.
Well,
Unless,
Craig,
go ahead, Bill.
you're talking about DuPont, and you're talking about point blank. We'll talk about the IACP, NAPO, the Top Cop Awards, all those kind of things. Oftentimes an officer, like Tom, you have a traumatic incident, you're involved in some situation. These people have awards and banquets, and you're recognized, and oftentimes there's some kind of monetary award or something else nice that's done for you. Tom, how did your chief treat you at the time? I mean, you should have been the officer of the month, the officer of the year. What happened?
It was he treated me very poorly. There's no question about that. And I think it was lack of education and knowing what to do would never happen. So what happened to me with my chief and the administration, you'd be fired now if you were a chief. You'd act like that. Now we've made a lot of progress, right, in officers post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of treatment. There was really none of that. It was basically get your legalities done. Like the shrink will tell you that you can come back to work, so Riverside isn't sued, and that was about it. And there was really no follow-up. I did receive the Kevlar DuPont award, and the chief didn't really want to kind of highlight that. So they wanted to present it at a village board meeting, okay, in front of our elected officials, and maybe the police officers could come. And he just wanted it to be acknowledged and not have that. So, being young back then, I didn't want to, you're naive. I want to get back to work. You're confused. You didn't get the support you thought you should get from the administration, not the officers. The officers were fantastic. But while I did receive that award that Craig just mentioned earlier, it wasn't on the same plateau that you would see that done today.
Wow, that's crazy to me. So what happened to that guy? Hopefully he got fired. And then the other part of my question is, clearly, as you rose through the ranks, in deference to what that guy said, you became the police chief there. So I'm sure this was an invaluable lesson to you, and you never treated your folks like that.
That's exactly right. I made a focus. When you're a patrolman, you don't say I want to be the chief. You just want to be able to do your job. But I held every rank. I was patrolman. I went to street sergeant. I went to detective sergeant. I went to operations lieutenant, and then finally deputy chief. And I was even acting chief until they decided what they wanted to do. So when the chief left at that time, when the shot spot was open, they weren't sure that they wanted to go inside. So the village was doing this national search for a police chief. And, they came to me and said, hey, put your name in. And I said, no, I'm not putting my name in. I've worked here 25. You guys know me. If you don't want me, you're chief. I'm okay with that. Like, that's okay. Like, and then the following day, the village president and the city manager came and said, yeah, we do want you. Like, what do we do to get you to be chief? And when I accepted it, my wife was here. She'd tell you the same thing. I said all the years that I was going up in the department, I'm not going to have policies like this. I'm going to be a completely different chief. I'm going to make sure that the officers are well taken care of. And in fact, I bet you that there were some politicians that would tell you that I was quote unquote officer's chief. Like maybe I wasn't as administrative as I should have been, that I had a tendency to really support the rank and file police officers. And I did. But I lasted as 13 years as the chief. So I think a lot of the politicians that I served under, they supported that because I was not what you would consider a chief that sat in his office all day and put memos out and emails. I mean, I was out there with my officers and I wanted to be different. And if they didn't want that kind of chief, I didn't want to be their chief.
Tom's story of survival is remarkable. But what happened next would test him in ways he never imagined. Next episode, we'll hear about his fight against a justice system that failed him and how his advocacy is protecting officers across Illinois. Join us for part 2 of Tom Weitzel's story.